a biology student at San Francisco State University. I'm here to talk about the 5G cell phone tower ordinance. There's not a lot that I can say that hasn't already been said before, so I'll keep this brief. But I just wanted to say one little fun fact, or I guess not so fun fact, about the 5G towers. But recent peer-reviewed health studies from Kaiser have revealed that real-world exposure to non-ionizing radiation from magnetic fields in pregnant women have found a 3 times higher rate of miscarriage, providing new evidence regarding their potential health risks. I just think that this is a super important topic for this area of conversation because we're experiencing a lot of detrimental environmental effects that are not due to the cause of this generation, and it's kind of been dumped on us from the previous generation, and I don't think that it's fair to do that and contribute to that with the 5G cell phone towers for our babies in the future. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, I just wanted to talk about my personal experience with electromagnetic radiation. I'm an engineer. I moved to San Francisco 3 years ago. I started getting headaches. I had headaches every day, multiple times a day. I lost a lot of hair. I have like half the hair I used to have. I lost a lot of weight. And for 3 years, I didn't know what it was from. I was living in the Mission. I happened to hear from a podcast about EMFs. At that time, I also had arthritis in every joint of my body. I wasn't able to, I never got tired, but when I fell asleep, I would wake up in the night for a couple hours every night, and I would wake up with arthritis and hangover headache, although I've never drank the night before. All of this stuff went away when I turned the power off in my room. So I've become an avid activist as much as I can for EMFs, and it's not that it hasn't been studied. There's a lot of studies. There's thousands of studies showing effects. There's effects, DNA damage, neurodegeneration, autism, infertility, lowered sperm count, opens the blood-brain barrier, causes cancers, insomnia, headaches, depression, fatigue. I've experienced a lot of these things, and I have to work in San Francisco. I have to commute on the BART with everyone watching videos on their cell phones, and I don't think that I will be able to do that if they're watching videos on 5G. So this is personal for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, supervisors. I'm Leslie de Taillandier, and I'm from District 3, or I reside in District 3. The implementation of 5G technology demands mass coverage throughout the city with wireless antennas. Current non-industry funded scientific studies absolutely shows harm, biological harm, from electromagnetic microwave radiation, which is wireless. The rollout of 5G is in opposition to San Francisco's precautionary principle. 5G is harmful. The public must be allowed to continue to speak about any proposed site for antenna installations. Please rescind Ordinance 190-19. And there are cities in Europe which are opposing 5G. And if you would please keep in mind that the FCC is an industry, it is an industry. FCC is an agency that is controlled by industry. So please protect the San Francisco public, not the FCC. I thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I'm an environmental scientist as well as the president of Diamond Heights Village Association, and I'm here because I would like to see San Francisco roll out 5G in a safe and responsible way. Our federal representatives, Anna Eshoo, Jackie Speer, and Senator Dianne Feinstein, have all introduced legislation for local control, not telecom. Congressman Anna Eshoo from Palo Alto was joined by Congressman Jackie Speer on January 14, 2019, introducing H.R. 530, the Preservation of Rights of State and Local Governments, actions by the Federal Communications Commission in accelerating wireless and wireline broadband development, deployment, by removing barriers to infrastructure investment. It invalidated the Federal Communications Commission's September 26, 2018 order in the third report to accelerate the deployment of 5G small cells throughout cities. H.R. 530, Order and Declaratory Ruling, FCC 18-111, shall have no effect. San Francisco is listed as supporting this legislation, and there are 52 co-sponsors of the bill, including all of our Bay Area members of Congress. On June 27, 2019, Senator Dianne Feinstein introduced Senate Bill 2012, Restoring Local Control over Public Infrastructure Act of 2019, a Senate companion bill to H.R. 530. It would similarly repeal FCC rules that limit state and local government control over telecom infrastructure. This bill is co-sponsored by Charles Schumer from New York, our very own Kamala Harris, and many others. Like H.R. 530, Senate Bill 2012 is supported by the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National Association of Telecommunication Workers and Advisors, the American Public Power Association, the Communication Workers of America, the National Association of Counties, the League of California Cities, and American Public Works Association. Republicans, meanwhile, have pending... Is that it?
Thank you. Next speaker.
Evening. I previously spoke here before about the health effects of 5G, and most of the people on that side of the railing gave me pretty much the same attention that they're giving me now, looking at their cell phones. So I'm going to stick to the legality of the situation. Verizon asked for and received permission to install 4G in the city of San Francisco. And what I see going up on Verizon's behalf are 5G cell towers that are on light poles and electric poles. They're small, they're conical. You really have to look because they really camouflage well into the background. Now, I've written to every supervisor, the district attorney, the state senator, asking one simple question. And that question being is, why did they receive permission to install 4G and are installing 5G? How else do I know they're installing 5G? They are installing it in a 5G pattern, basically in a 1 to 3 block radius. They have to be close together, and these, unlike 4G, which can be far away, and that's the way they are deploying these throughout San Francisco, within a 1 to 3 block radius. That's 5G tech. How else do I know they're installing 5G? Well, when I saw them putting it up right across the street from my bedroom, I went out to PG&E, who was installing them on behalf of Verizon, and the foreman of PG&E told me, I asked him to his face, is this 4G or is this 5G? And he told me, this is 5G. And I said, well, how is that possible? Verizon said that they're installing 4G. And he told me, this is 5G. It has nothing to do with 4G. That is his verbatim comment. So again, my question to the supervisors here, why are they allowed to deploy and install 5G antenna when they receive?
Thank you. Next speaker.
Still waiting. Simple question.
Before I begin my time, I think that everyone here has left kids and families at home, dinner on the
I'm starting your
table.
time.
Fine, you can begin my time, but when you're looking at your cell phone, I'm a kindergarten teacher. That is so disrespectful. Please act like a 5-year-old. Put your phones away and face us. I am 32 years old, terrified to come up here and speak in front of a bunch of powerful adults. Please have the respect, close your Instagram, and make some eye contact. I'm here to talk about 5G. We are 99% the same as our ancestors, living in a world, an environment that is 99% different. America approaches health, medicine, and food in general very differently from other developed countries. We take an innocent until proven guilty approach with drugs and ingredients in our foods. We allow many harmful ingredients in our food, medicine, skincare, and cleaning products that Europe has banned, outlawed, and would never permit because they do their due diligence and research before allowing ingredients or drugs on the market. In fact, over the last 20 years, America has banned only 30 ingredients in our skincare and cleaning products, whereas Europe has banned over 1,000 they view as unsafe. Let that really sink in for you. Other developed countries know that decisions that impact its citizens' health should be viewed through the lens of guilty until proven innocent when the health and well-being of its people are at play. They know that its citizens are not lab rats and should not be tested on. Our health is not your experiment. We were not created to be bombarded by EMFs every 100 to 200 yards and within 6 feet of our apartments at a rate that is causing flocks of birds in New York to drop dead on the streets, at a rate that is causing queen bees, and the queen never leaves her hive, to leave immediately when a 5G tower is near her home. Please do not allow San Francisco residents to be lab rats in this experiment for faster calls, messaging, and internet. Please represent us, your residents, and push for real, extensive research that definitively proves that 5G is safe for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Yeah, I just have been asked by a supervisor that if you don't need to speak, there are a lot of people who we're all tired. We've all been here a long time. But
Excuse me.
Yes. I was just going to have everybody raise their hand if they're here for supporting local control, not telecom, so you can see the people who are here. And if you don't need to speak, then, don't.
Gotcha.
Basically.
Thank you. Next speaker.
And Ms. Selby, I can multitask. Go ahead.
My name is Joe, and I'm here about the 5G, and I'd really like if you would listen to me, because you've been on your cell phone the most. So, just to let you know. And I really appreciate the lady behind you and her attention. So this is a book you might all want to look at. It's 5G, and it's awareness and accountability. And I'm going to read something that Robert F. Kennedy said. He went to visit a person who was an environmentalist leader. And the leader told him, "I want to show you something." And then he took my cell phone. He put his cell phone on top of a beehive and called his cell phone, which is on vibrate. When his phone rang, all the bees came out of the hive, and even the queen bee came out. It is very unusual for a queen bee to come out of her hive. So I'm asking you to listen to the queen bee more than the telecom companies and really consider the dangers of 5G. Thank you. I really appreciate your attention and yours. Thank you.
Hello all, I'm Charlotte Halifax, and I want to thank Supervisor Peskin for revisiting 5G. I want to share with you all a letter that I think was already sent to you by Catherine Dodd, but it's been signed by 23 neighborhood and merchant associations, and also signed by over 200 San Franciscans in under 2 weeks. A 2018 study by the U.S. National Toxicology Program on rodents to clarify the potential health hazards of radio frequency radiation, RFR, shows that long-term exposure to RFR from 2G and 3G cell phones is associated with an elevated risk of cancer, and warned that the public should take pragmatic steps to reduce exposure. The World Health Organization's cancer experts concluded that there is a possible link between brain cancer in people and RFR exposure, and warned that the public should take pragmatic steps to reduce exposure. There's a consolidated lawsuit that the city and county of San Francisco are part of, challenging the FCC's action before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The 2018 FCC order violates the National Environmental Policy Act, the National Historic Preservation Act, and the California Environmental Quality Act by excluding the construction of mobile stations and small cell towers and other communications facilities. Current objective standards written by the San Francisco Public Works approve up to 4 cell phone towers on one utility pole, as close as 6 feet from your window. These standards are the specifications attached to Ordinance 19019, passed by the Board of Supervisors on consent calendar in July and signed by Mayor Breed in August 2019. They cannot possibly be aesthetically pleasing, they are not needed, and they are hazardous to San Franciscans. Further, this ordinance takes away all local control, putting control in the hands of the telecom industry. Cities across America are fighting the FCC order. Thank you.
Next speaker.
At this point, I don't know if I should say good evening or good night, so I'll be short. So I'm here talking on the Ordinance 19019. Just looking at it, I noticed that the Notice of Tentative Approval section was completely scratched out. A protest of a personal wireless site permit was also completely scratched out. And so in these cases, the telecommunication industry has full control and the public doesn't have any input. So I want to just give you some very brief context on how the wireless industry has not had any pre-market testing on these technologies, and all of these effects have been cumulative. So with 4G, once 5G rolls in, we're also going to get the cumulative effects from 4G, 3G, 2G, and 1G. And so all of that to say is there is so many possible health effects that you all should investigate and take into account the precautionary principles that the environmental code that was signed in 2003 to make sure that people with electromagnetic sensitivity or people who are more susceptible to these issues are taken care of. Thank you.
I also want to say faster is not always better. SF will have to install hundreds, if not thousands, of new antennas to make 5G work. 5G frequency has a much shorter frequency range than G4. Per the new DPW amendments, 19090, many telephone poles will have up to 4 5G antennas. Cell phone towers can be 6 feet from homes. There will be no setbacks for schools or homes. The FCC's declaratory ruling on 18133 is an overreach of San Francisco's oversight of telecommunications. The ruling accelerated the development of antennas the deployment of antennas in the public right-of-way. San Francisco will be helplessly in its oversight of 5G antennas. It requires only a ministerial permit to approve small cell towers in the right-of-way, not the current conditional use permit that is fully vetted. These cell towers can be batched so dozens of antennas can be automatically approved at once in a mile radius. Many cities have decided not to use 5G antennas, as tests have shown that the 5G frequencies could be harmful. As we are doing, please review the current studies and examine the alternatives to providing fiber optic.
Thank you. Next speaker.
So killing somebody quickly or slowly has the same outcome. The mandated reportable condition of child endangerment that I mentioned in my first comment earlier was created by this board on July 25th. It was quietly changed in response to some successful appeals of close proximity microwave radiation antenna wireless telecommunication facilities that are being three things: placed, constructed, and modified, just those three, on the streets of San Francisco. And what happened? We had a 1,400-page appeal that outlined all the things that Verizon was doing wrong. Verizon didn't like that. They pulled the application at 2298 Pacific Avenue. Anyone can read that appeal on mystreetmychoice.com on the San Francisco page. Essentially, the July-August change to Article 25 is a problem of negligence. You wiped out the appeal process. Unbelievable. We need the city and county of San Francisco to put regulations in that are essentially speed limit, seatbelts, and airbags-like regulations to eliminate the existing child endangerment of putting an antenna at 6 feet or 12 feet from a child's bedroom. This is a reportable, mandated offense, and I alerted Dr. Tomas Aragon today at the Department of Health and asked him to report it. There's much more to be said. I think I have 30 seconds left. Just cut me off when you can. All right? We need a hard equipment enforceable limit of affected radiated power, not from the current thousands of them, but down to milliwatts. I am talking about 0.025 or 0.035 of a watt. The dirty secret is that gets you telecommunications coverage down the street a half a mile.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, board members. My name is Michael Levesque, and I happen to be extremely electrically sensitive, and we need a moratorium on cellular antennas. When imminent harm is possible, requiring further determination by the Department of Health, which is what is going on right now, then the precautionary principle must be followed above all else based on its two rules. One, it is not preemptive. Therefore, Article 25 of the 1996 Telecommunications Act cannot stand in its way. Second, it is not conditional. Therefore, there are no conditions restraining its action. It is there for the sole purpose to protect society from abuse, danger, and harm. The EPA, the FDA, the CDC, courts, the wireless manufacturers consider Wi-Fi a pollutant, and the WHO gives it the same status as DDT, lead, and asbestos. Inappropriately, electrical and electronic engineers determine levels of harm. They do not measure biology of the body, nerves, or cells. They do not measure exposure over time. Scientific authorities recognize the danger and state it must be reduced 1,000-fold and would still be able to enable communication. San Francisco, in its wisdom, passed the precautionary principle and can now mandate and enact it, allowing policy to catch up with science to protect us, the residents of San Francisco. 5G is not tested even under specific absorption rates. There's just so much of it that goes on. I'm sure that there'll be another hearing which will really allow us to say more.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I want to tell you just what a bad actor Verizon has been for years. Verizon has never wittingly notified a single tenant of proposed cell phone towers, despite that requirement in your previous Article 25. Not a single tenant, ever. They claimed, ridiculously, that your legislation required them to notify either owners or tenants, but never both. Indeed, by their interpretation, it would be improper for them to notify both. Okay, that's crazy. The city attorney was aware of this, or at least the deputy city attorney was. I imagine DPW was as well. There was never any pushback. Okay, to me, this just encapsulates what's been wrong with this system. Your recent legislation made this worse. We need to make this better. So I hope you can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Supervisors. Ozzie Rome with New Neighborhood Council. I'll be brief. I just want to point out the San Francisco's ordinance on precautionary principle and urge you to stop implementing this technology until we know better. Here's what the precautionary principle of San Francisco's precaution principle states. Where threats of serious or irreversible damage to people or nature exist, lack of full scientific certainty about cause and effect shall not be viewed as sufficient reason for the city to prevent the degradation of the environment or protect the health of its citizens. So this is a technology that we know so very little about, and implementing it in a city of 800,000, over 800,000 people, could be catastrophic. So it's not too much to ask you to stop the implementation until we have better data about the impact on the health of the residents. And like the previous speaker, I also want to lend my support to what the taxi drivers, are here and asking. I think it is just, it's reasonable to ask the city to pay them back the medallion money. I don't know what the cost is, I don't know what the impact is, but I'm sure a city as rich as we are with $12 billion for our budget, we could afford to do something for these folks. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. But I think that you've heard a lot of eloquent statements with many facts from my colleagues here. I happen to be a PhD cell biologist. I'm not going to go into any of the science. I'm sure you'll hear it at your meeting. I'm not sure if it's tomorrow or the next day when you have another hearing. But I'm very proud to live in San Francisco, and I support the liberal policies of this city. And I'm having a hard time understanding why just some of these cities have already not supported 5G and are protecting their citizens. And among them are Berkeley, San Anselmo, Piedmont Marin, Monterey City, Monterey County, Hillsborough, Palo Alto, Los Altos, Davis, Sebastopol, Sonoma City. I could go on and on. So I hope that you will reconsider your decision. I really don't think that we should be overly influenced by the very commercial complexion of our national leadership in Washington. I think that this is just an issue of greed. I think that many of us have cell phones. I haven't been anywhere in this city where I've not been able to use my cell phone, and I don't really see the need for 5G at all. I'm not sure that we can keep it out, but I think that you should really seriously consider the implications. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, supervisors. I urge you to proceed with caution and not rush in to implement 5G. Many Northern California cities have taken steps to protect their residents with respect to the objective standards Public Works is proposing. The objective standards will lead to a proliferation of 4 and 5G cell antennas with up to 4 cell phone towers per pole, plus bulky ancillary cabinets everywhere. Alternatively, fiber optic wiring can go to homes and businesses instead of between antennas and facilities for 4 and 5G. Rushing to implement so-called 5G objective standards will result in the loss of local government oversight, control, and income, and have direct health and environmental impacts. Cities have traditionally negotiated with providers on issues like location, appearance, and size of wireless structures. These bills severely limit the ability of cities to ensure that infrastructure suits the neighborhood around it, and the ability of cities to decide whether or not to allow private use of public property at all. The FCC's order requiring fixed rental rates for municipally owned poles and right-of-way forces taxpayers to subsidize private commercial development and violates the 5th and 10th Amendments.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello. My name is Sarah Amanoff. I'm a teacher at San Francisco Unified School District. I also was the one who wrote the resolution for safer technology with United Educators of San Francisco. I am also part of San Francisco for Local Control, not telecom. We're imploring you to rescind the Ordinance 190-19. And very concerned that antennas will be located as close as 6 feet from a bedroom window. The precautionary principle requires our city officials to not knowingly put the residents in harm's way. San Francisco has flagrantly failed to enforce its officially enacted 2003 precautionary principle environmental code ordinance by permitting scientifically unsafe and untested wireless antenna, cell towers, and networks long after becoming well aware of peer-reviewed scientific studies, which include the National Toxicology Report 2018 with clear evidence of DNA damage and cancer. It was yesterday published in the Environmental and Molecular Mutagenesis, showing a definite increase in DNA damage from radiofrequency radiation, such as the small cells that this ordinance would be putting in front of children's homes. Lowell High School already has a small cell in front of it where parents pick up their children. One of my students waits underneath that cell tower every day, and it just breaks my heart. Because this is an unknown, untested thing, personal wireless facility. They didn't even know what it was. So San Francisco should be leading the way. So I'm going to also, Ellie Marks from the California Brain Tumor Association also mentioned Sacramento. She has a little letter she sent to you. She wrote, small cells have been activated in small areas of Sacramento and Los Angeles. Residents in...
Thank you. Next speaker.